Hi, guys. This is Josh Whitehead, one of the Innovation Lab directors with Leadership Network. And I'm joined today by Jenni Catron, who is the executive director of Crosspoint Church, as well as one of the authors of the book Just Lead. And God has just used Jenni in amazing ways. I tell her often that she is one of the forerunners of launching multi-site campuses, just with looking at what others were doing and seeing and discerning what God had for them. And so I've asked her today to answer a question just to help churches who are thinking about launching their first campus. And the question that she's going to answer for you is, what is one mistake that churches make when they're implementing a multi-site strategy? And so, Jenni, I'm glad you're with us today. Just give us a few remarks, and then how about answering that question for us?
Sure. Awesome. Thanks, Josh. I'm Jenni Catron, and I serve as Executive Director at Crosspoint Church in Nashville, Tennessee, and excited to just be a part of the conversation. We launched multi-site at Crosspoint almost 6 years ago, and probably learned a lot of things the hard way because there weren't as many churches doing multi-site, and that's why I'm so grateful for the different opportunities to learn and grow now from multi-site that are out there, because there just weren't as many opportunities to learn from others back when we were launching multi-site. But, I love that question because there's so many complexities to leadership in general, but then when you go multi-site, it's a whole nother layer of complexity. And I think my answer to that question today is communication. And communication is such a muddy word, and that there's, what does that exactly mean? But when I'm talking about communication, I'm talking about how we get things done inside of our churches. And I learned pretty early on that the way we did things as one church was completely different once we added even a second campus, and then now we have 5 campuses plus an internet campus. So communication went off the rails pretty quickly for us. John Maxwell, I think, is quoted with saying, everything rises and falls on leadership. And I've kind of added to that in our context and said, if everything rises and falls on leadership, leadership rises or falls on communication. Like our communication and how we help one another accomplish the work of the ministry is so essential to us leading well, to us leading thriving churches and leading multi-site churches that are really effective and accomplishing the vision that we hope for when we set out in multi-site. And I think, for us as a church, we're a 10-year-old church, and our lead pastor is extremely relational by nature. And that's how we communicated, when it was, when we were small and there were 6 of us around the conference room table or somebody's living room, back before we even had office space. We communicated relationally. Like everything was just, it was kind of caught. Like you just kind of caught the information you needed, and then you just hit the ground running and accomplished the work of the ministry. And that worked really well for us all the way up until we started multi-site. We literally had a staff that sat around the table every week and figured out how to get things done. And, you just dove in and asked questions and figured things out without having a lot of systems or process to how you got information to one another. And the turning point really for me was this idea of when we went from 1 campus to 2, and then on to 3 and 4 and 5, instead of like circles of team members around the table, we became these spider webs of people all over. For us, our campuses are all over the greater Nashville area. And so all of a sudden you had this like spider web of complexity of you've got people over here and over here, and we weren't all getting the same information, and we'd start seeing these breakdowns of simple things. Like just what they needed to do ministry on a Sunday, or what needed to be communicated in the program, on Sunday morning, or from the stage on Sunday, or, just all kinds of little nuances that were getting lost in the gaps. And so, it just kind of made me very aware that we had to develop some systems, and that was kind of anti our culture. Our culture was so relational, so, again, information was caught rather than deliberately delivered, so you could just sit in the room and you'd kind of figure out what was going on and who needed to know what. And all of a sudden, this spider web of communication complexity made us have to figure out, well, how do I make sure this person over here gets this, or this person gets this? The proximity needed to be replaced by process. just our sheer proximity to one another allowed communication to naturally flow. And once we had multiple locations, we had to figure out what are the processes to make sure the right people have the right information at the right time. So I think, for us in Multisite, the communication thing is probably one of our greatest blunders, and the things that we're constantly trying to figure out how to improve and grow and learn as we go.
Jenni, I had the chance to be a part of you guys' staff meeting at one point for each of the campuses, and that was awesome. And what I love about you guys is that in those meetings, the one that I was part of particularly, you took time to celebrate what happened at other campuses. And I think that's such a huge part of communicating, that everyone realizes the wins, and we always will know the challenges because we're quick to share those, but we don't always know the wins. And so I really value that about Crosspoint Church and just you and your leadership, and Pete as well. And Jenni, you also co-authored a book with Sherry Surratt called Just Lead. So just tell us really quickly, 30 seconds, what's that book about and how people can get a copy?
Yeah, Sherry and I wrote the book Just Lead. It's called the No Whining, No Complaining, No Nonsense Guide for Women Leaders in the Church. Not short at all. Talk about bad communication. But Sherry and I just wrote that out of a heart and spirit of, there are a lot of younger women coming up in leadership positions in the church. And it's not an angsty, like, we got to make sure women have their space kind of book. It's just a real heart-to-heart kind of conversation for us with other women to say, hey, here's some things that you can do as a woman leader in ministry to just continue to thrive, to find your place, and really just allow your God-given gifts as a leader to flourish. So that's the heart, that's the spirit. You can get it any of the online retailers. Amazon, I think, has a great list price there for it. And some Christian retailers carry it, but it's a niche book because it's women leaders in the church. So some Christian bookstores carry it, but online's the easiest way to get it. Thanks, Josh.
That's awesome. September 19th and 20th, we have a lab called Multisite Jumpstart at Leadership Network. Jenni will be joining us to help churches during that time, as well as Tony Morgan. And if you want more information about that, you can simply go to the website leadnet.org and look at the innovation labs. It's going to be a great help for churches. Thanks so much, Jenni, and we'll talk to you guys soon.